Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today, and we're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And our guest today is Megan Melberg. She's vice president of delivery at Amitech, and Michelle Goodman, practice administrator for the Women's Health Center at St. Peter's University Hospital. Welcome.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.
Yeah, excited to have you here. It sounds like you're working on some really interesting, I would say, practical uses of AI and automation that are really making an impact for your organizations. But before we dive into the work you're doing, Megan, why don't you start us off? Tell us about yourself and Amitech.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I'm the vice president of delivery at Amitech. We are a healthcare automation, AI, and data analytics company that solely works with healthcare providers and payers. We really believe in work like we did with Michelle and her team at St. Peter's that we can help with the workforce shortages, admin expenses that so many of our healthcare providers across the country really struggle with by providing, like you said, John, that's a perfect way, an actual practical solution to help with the day-to-day operations that can be extremely burdensome. So I have my entire background's in healthcare operations. I was in executive leadership in frontline healthcare for about 13 years prior to joining Amitech in 2023. And in this role, I get the opportunity to work with providers and payers across the country to try to help our staff that need help and our patient care as well.
That's awesome. Thanks, Megan. And Michelle, how about yourself in St. Peter's University Hospital?
So hi, again, I'm Michelle Goodman. I am the practice administrator for the Women's Health Center at St. Peter's University Hospital. We are a 478 acute non-for-profit teaching hospital in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And I've been with the Women's Health Center in St. Peter's for about 16 years now.
That's awesome. Well, excited to learn about what you're doing. Michelle, why don't you start us off? Talk about the burden that your organization experienced with mandated perinatal risk assessment reporting, and what were some of the complexities that made it really challenging?
So the perinatal risk assessment, which is also called the PRA, it is mandated by the state of New Jersey for all Medicaid and managed Medicaid pregnant patients. So it looks to collect clinical, environmental, and psychosocial risk factors that affect pregnancy. And so this process initially, was a paper process and very tedious information that had to be faxed over to the state. It became electronic in 2021 and even more information that was required by us. So it took a lot of time for the staff. It took anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to locate all the information from our medical record system and input that into PRA Connect's website.
It's
And
so
I think, Michelle,
interesting.
we counted all the fields once. It's like 350 pieces of information that goes
Yeah,
into the PRA.
exactly. A lot of
A
information.
lot of information.
It's amazing, right? I mean, you hear all the time that doctors hate the EHR, and I'm like, do you hate the EHR, or do you hate the fact that the EHR forces us to collect hundreds of data points,
Yeah,
right?
Probably the latter.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, but you have to do it, right? I mean,
yeah.
that's the other challenge I think that you're facing, you know. So what led you to decide to work with Amitech to kind of automate these reports? I mean, it sounds like it was an overwhelming burden, but tell us more about that decision to work with Amitech to automate it.
So, like I said, for a long time, it was very time consuming. The staff were coming to me saying, we need additional support. We don't have enough time to complete the PRA forms. And so I would bring that information back to my executive director, Michelle Giuliano, and I would say, I need additional support to be able to enter these PRAs on the state's website. And there was an opportunity to work with Amitech in 2024, and my executive director, Michelle, brought that information back to Dr. Tenenbaum, who's our chief medical information officer. And he said this would be a great automation project and save the staff a lot of time. So that's kind of how we got together with Amitech.
And
Interesting.
funnily enough, John, this was St. Peter's first automation. So they like dove in head first.
Yes.
Dr. Tenenbaum, the CMIO, he is clinical in his background. So he was very passionate about doing something clinical to help the actual nursing and clinical staff. So again, a lot of times you see organizations start very small with something that's a little bit more simplistic. Like I said, they dove in head first and said, let's automate this 350
Yeah.
field PRA portal. So that's how we got engaged right away with Michelle and the rest of the St. Peter's team.
You just dove into the deep end. I love
Yeah,
it. So, Meg,
surely.
talk to us about the solution that you put together, with St. Peter's University Hospital, and how does it work with some of the unique workflows you had to manage. I imagine, like the many reporting places, there wasn't a nice, clean API that you could just tie into. It was a form on a website, it sounds like.
Correct. I mean, really, I would say, Michelle, what, like the first 3 months, we didn't even talk about the automation that when we
Yeah.
worked with Michelle and Kai, the other practice administrator, and then Wendy, another St. Peter's team member, very closely on truly what like I look at as like standardization and process improvement. So like, how does the intake work? Where is this actually going in your documentation right now? Where should it go? Because that's the other thing too. I think our first time we met with Michelle and Kai was like to walk through where everything gets put in Athena, their EMR. And I think it was like, what, 2 hours, Michelle? And we didn't even get through it all. Because
Yes, you're absolutely
it
right. It
could be
took two
here
hours.
and
It
it
could
might
be
be
there.
there and it
Hmm.
should be here, but it's not. So let's dig.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to call the patient because we didn't get that information. So we spent a significant amount of time on the front end, really doing like consultancy process improvement work, partnering with Michelle and the team, which not only led to the success of the automation, but it really standardized the workflows across the practices at St. Peter's as well, which again is something that every organization wants, but investing the time like we did with the St. Peter's team is a significant undertaking.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry.
yeah,
So like Megan said, and there was a lot of time spent on looking for the information in the EMR and putting it onto the PRA website. And every department did it differently. We have three OB departments. We have Women's Health Center where I am, the Birth Center, and High Risk OB. And each department had a different place where they documented the information that went into the PRA. So we worked to make it a consistent workflow and easier for all three departments.
and tracking the PRAs was a whole nother beast of like, how do you know when there's 3 PRAs that need to get done per pregnant patient, first trimester, a follow-up form, and a third trimester right around when they give birth. And again, everyone was tracking it differently. Tracking when they were due was like almost a full-time job in and of itself. So we really, again, pushed to standardize and automate how all of that was going to get done in the front end so that we knew that on week 6 is when the first try or after the first visit the first trimester form was going to be done, and this is how we can find what that trigger is in the EMR so that not only is the bot and the automation doing the PRA, but it's also helping significantly with the tracking of it as well. So that was probably like the first 3 or 4 months was just organization.
Absolutely.
Um, and I think, to be honest, again, that was the point, was it to make it for the automation, but really, Michelle, the intangible benefits of the improvement of the workflows in general is something that
Yeah.
I think that we always boast about, right? When we talk
Yeah.
through it, is just what that means for your clinical staff and your admin staff, just in general, being able to find things more consistently moving forward.
Definitely. And just to give you an idea on volume, we have about 1,800 deliveries that come out of the Women's Health Center per year. So, St. Peter's has over 5,700 deliveries per year. So that's a lot of patients. And that's just the Women's Health Center. So if every one of those OB patients has 3 forms, it's a lot of time spent on completing the information.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see the layers of forms that are required.
Yeah.
As you said, the dates are moving targets, as I've experienced with my kids.
Yeah.
That often
Yes.
changes and evolves over time as more information is available. So that adds a lot of complexity. And Michelle, it was interesting. You talked about kind of needing to get the staff on board. I'd love to hear more about what you did to build that trust in this automated process, and also, how did you approach the bot handling exceptions where the information isn't available to the bot?
So myself and Kayura Rita, she was a practice administrator for High Risk OB. We developed education slides and a video as well for the staff to have for support. And then we were on the floor, we were on the floor supporting the staff, checking. The bot would pull the information from the new OB visit. So we would be scanning through those charts, making sure they're not missing anything, re-educating the staff, just always being there to support the staff. That was a big deal.
And one of the other things that, again, St. Peter's invested in is once the bot was live, myself having a clinical background, and then our other partner, Katie, that consulted with St. Peter's as well, is a nurse by trade. We did clinical auditing. So we didn't just like turn the bot on and hope the information was right. We were, now the bot automatically submits to the portal PRA, but for the first like 2 months, I would say, nothing got submitted until we clinically audited it to make sure that the data was accurate, it was pulling correctly, so that Family Health Initiatives, who runs the PRA, was getting accurate information. And not only did that help make sure that, again, accurate information is priority, but I think, Michelle, secondarily, that just gave your staff a lot more comfort knowing that we weren't just letting the bot and the automation run free the first day one. We were able to really show through the audits and tracking, like, this is working, this is, that, and that we can show you and prove that it is, at PRA by PRA. As far as exceptions, that was another thing that we made very robust, right? Is that there's, again, significant amount of fields in PRA. Most of them we have deemed through the process improvement process as like mandatory, right? Like these need to be in here and they need to be right, but some of them aren't. So, some of them are nice to have if you have the information, but not need to have. So anything that is mandatory that the bot is not able to populate from the EMR through the mapping process that we did in our process design with St. Peter's, we now have a spreadsheet that goes back to key members of the St. Peter's Women's Health teams that says Megan Melberg, incomplete, height, address was incorrect. It specifically says what wasn't in there. So then that gets sent to the team daily. They know, oh, okay, I gotta go adjust these 3 items for Megan, and then the next day the bot retries it and then can complete the PRA and submit. So there is a pretty, to your point, robust exception process. But the key is we wanted to make sure that the staff could go and fix it in the EMR, and the bot still did the PRA. So to, again, alleviate as much of possible off of the staff, to eliminate them having to actually go in and fix it in the PRA portal themselves.
And I think like a huge part for us was the test environment, right? So we had Colleen Pope from Family Health Initiatives. They and her team gave us a test environment for the PRA Connect. And then we had our St. Peter's team give us a test environment in our EMR. So we were able to test patients before we actually went live, which was, it was a huge relief for us. And then like Megan said, we did receive, or we do, I should say, receive reports multiple times per week. And if there's any issues, the staff go in and they correct it, and the bot goes back in the next day and submits the PRA. Sometimes there's system exceptions internally. Sometimes we do have some issues with insurances where, a managed Medicaid would go prior to a commercial, things like that. But we're always checking, we're always auditing just to make sure the system, the process is working well.
Yeah, and it sounds like those reports are almost an education to the staff too, of what, that may be a problem and they could just fix it on the front end in the future. So that's a fascinating feedback loop that you're creating as part of the exception process. Really,
especially in the beginning, right, Michelle? You were being able to see, like, okay, height, for example, no one's putting height in. So we need to go back to the staff and remind them that height is, a mandatory field.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, this information is really crucial information. I know it's like tedious work, but the information that goes back to the state really provides a lot of crucial services for the patients, for the pregnant patients. So it's really important information that we want to make sure we're getting accurate, and comprehensive information. We're not leaving anything out.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear, Michelle, what's been your organization's response to this automation, and what have been some of the benefits you've seen from this new process? I love that you said that now the information is stored in a more standard format, so they don't have to search throughout the EHR to find out where it's stored. Now it's in the same place, which I think is valuable. But what have you seen as some of the benefits of this process?
So yeah, it is definitely beneficial that the information is stored in the same place. So anytime the staff have to do a manual PRA, if there's an exception, they know exactly where to go to pull the information from the EMR to the PRA website. This consistency throughout the practices. The benefit has been huge. Like I said, it took anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes for each form to be completed. There's 3 forms per pregnancy, so it's saving the staff a lot of time where they could be doing other things. There were times that I didn't have enough support, so I would pull someone from the clinical floor to help with the PRAs, and I don't have to do that so much. So, and initially when we went live, a lot of the clinical staff were concerned that, they have 1 hour to complete a new OB visit, and they said, how are we going to complete this new OB visit within 1 hour and also document all this information in the EMR for the PRA? And once they started doing it and we were there to support them and they got used to it, it just became like anything else. And they're doing it. They've been doing it. We went live, Meg, in June, right?
Hmm.
In June of this year, and they've been doing it. No complaints. So it's very exciting.
And I think the other thing, John, is that Michelle mentioned in the beginning that the PRA is mandated for all Medicaid patients in New Jersey, but Family Health Initiatives strongly encourages having a PRA done for all pregnant women because, again, this is crucial for connecting patients and babies to necessary referral services, support, all of those sort of things. So one of the other pieces that St. Peter's invested in here and then really has perked the interest of like family health initiatives for hopefully seeing other providers do this is all PRAs are getting done. So we aren't just doing the Medicaid patients, we are submitting for everybody, which again is hopefully connecting more patients to needed services and also just providing more data that is leveraged across the state of New Jersey to FHI as well.
Yeah. I love that you're able to scale it because, once you've automated the process, it kind of doesn't matter how many
Yeah.
you do. It's so interesting how that opens up new worlds. Love
Yeah,
that.
And
I
we
think
started to
like for
have a lot of conversations with FHI, right, Michelle? And
Mhm.
that was one of the things they want to get it to a point where everyone's doing a PRA for everybody, but it takes a lot of time and there's a lot of pushback from providers, right? So, FHI, Family Health Initiatives, Colleen, Michelle mentioned, were fantastic to work with through the process because sometimes you're a little nervous because state agencies, when you talk about like tech in their in their portals or in their systems, the safeguards can go up pretty quickly, but they were not that way. They were like, this is amazing. This can save the clinical team time. This can give us more accurate information in higher volumes. It's a win-win. How can we help? Which was significant throughout the process.
Yeah, I think the Women's Health Center, we've always done it for all patients. We definitely didn't single out to a Medicaid or a managed Medicaid. We completed PRAs for every patient. The managed Medicaid patients are entitled to the free services from the state, but they use the rest of the information for research and, it helps them a lot. So, there are services that maybe a commercial insured patient would receive. So we definitely were on board to make sure that they all had the PRA.
Well, and that's why it was so overwhelming, right, Michelle? Is because you
Yes,
were
you're
doing
right. You're
what's
right.
right for all the patients, which is
You're
why
right.
you needed to automate it. So fascinating use case we have here. Megan, this just feels like a small example of what automation is possible and maybe a blueprint for other solutions. Where are you looking to take these types of automations next?
Personally, and with Amitech's backing, like we are very committed to taking these types of solutions, like true what we believe is clinical solutions to other providers, with just technology continuing to grow with like agentic AI as part of it, and really more of like those AI focused use cases, MLL models, those sort of things. Eliminating double documentation. I know we've said we can do it for years and years, but on a clinical side, easier said than done is just how I think anyone that's worked in healthcare operations feels, because this is a prime example of, there's 3 practices, they all do it differently. They're all on the same EMR. That doesn't much matter. But I feel like if, as we see more organizations commit to that standardization and process improvement piece, leveraging things like agentic AI, RPA, AI, can truly actually eliminate some of that, just truly what I think of as double documentation. So we are doing that across the board with a lot of our providers, and for the first time actually seeing the positive effects of it hit like the clinical staff, where you are not just shifting work, it's actually truly alleviating work. As far as like the PRA specifically, I know we've mentioned family health initiatives and FHI. Like, this is something that we truly believe and are passionate about, just trying to bring this type of solution to more mandated reporting across states. Again, as someone who worked in healthcare for 13 years, I feel for the level of mandated reporting, it is necessary for our quality of care and metrics to be tracked, but it takes a ton of time. So this to us seems like such low-hanging fruit that organizations like Amitech can actually truly help take off people's plates. So our practitioners, our nurses, our doctors, our admin staff are truly back at the bedside and not spending hours at a computer regurgitating PHI.
Yeah. And I think no clinician wants double documentation. The only thing worse than that is Michelle coming to tell them that they missed documentation. So they have to do it again.
Yes, yes.
Rather than the clinical work.
Yes.
Michelle, what would you add? Any other processes you're considering automating after this experience that you're looking at?
I just want to mention that, we went live and it doesn't stop there, because, we have family health initiatives that makes changes, I would say probably once a month or so. Like, we just received a change on referrals. So that means that we need to build a field in our EMR. We need to educate the staff. And now we have a go live in probably 3 weeks. So we're always working together with Amitech. We meet monthly just to go over any changes, any issues that we want to bring back. I think it's exciting. This was a huge endeavor for us. So this was definitely a game changer. And we're about to change to a new EMR soon. So we may be doing it once again. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, the beauty is you have the process in place, so now you can apply it to the new EHR, and and it will still work with your mandated reporting. In fact, you don't have to educate the staff as much.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, Megan, Michelle, this is an amazing use case, and I love that it's actually been implemented. It's not just, hey, AI could implement this solution. This is a truly, implemented solution that is saving time for St. Peter's University Hospital and for, the patients and the clinicians involved. So I appreciate you taking time to sit down with us to share about this amazing case study. And thanks so much, everyone, for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out, healthcareittoday.com, or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast application. Thanks so much.
Thank you.